Indeed, bring us so much pride that Hulda Momanyi is the first ever Kenyan immigrant to be elected to a state legislature position in the United States, winning that Minnesota House of Representatives seat in the U.S. election. Now, Hulda vied for the seat on a Democrat Farmer Labor Party ticket and emerged victorious over Republican Brad Olson. She now joins us live from Minnesota in the U.S. Hulda, great to see you. Congratulations. You have been campaigning for the last year and a half. It has paid off. How does this win make you feel, and what does it mean to you?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It has been a roller coaster of emotions, a roller coaster of joy and happiness, of just remembering the resilience of my team and what we have been able to accomplish this last year and a half, right? And when you ask me about what it means to me, this race was more than just me. It was about making sure that I represented this community, not only the African immigrant community in this district, but the Kenyan community that has invested in this state for as long as I could remember. And it was an opportunity to just celebrate the contributions of the immigrant community in this state, and to have finally a representation and a representative at the state capitol here in Minnesota.
Now, Hulda, you vied for the seat, of course, as a Democrat, but Donald Trump, a Republican, has won the U.S. election. I just want to get your initial reaction to his win.
It is definitely heartbreaking. And, you know, when we talk about his presidency and what that means, especially for the African immigrant community, it is heartbreaking. We were very much excited to have a Harris-Walz ticket here to carry the day, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And if everybody is aware, you know, Walz is the governor of the state of Minnesota, so this was extra special for us, right? And so when I look at the presidency of Donald Trump, now that it's official, and that's at the other side of democracy, right? You know, people get to choose, and sometimes, you know, you don't get the candidate that you're supporting, but that again is the side of democracy that we value so much and that we want to protect. And so a Trump presidency would likely, honestly, I think, bring significant policy shifts impacting immigrants, you know, based on his previous administration approaches and recent campaign rhetoric. Like, he's been very clear where he stands on border and immigration enforcement, right? You know, his previous presidency was marked by strict immigration enforcement policy, including, you know, a focus on border wall expansion, you know, increased deportation, you know, and again, there's nothing wrong with protecting, you know, our borders here in the U.S., but you know, the way he was doing it was alienating a whole population who was doing things the right way. And then we look at asylum and refugee programs. You know, Trump historically curtailed a number of refugees allowed into the U.S. and introduced policies, honestly, that limited asylum claims, you know, such as requesting asylum seekers to remain, you know, in such countries as Mexico. You know, a similar approach could, you know, mean reducing refugee quotas and more restrictive conditions for asylum seekers, affecting those fleeing persecution and or violence, especially with what is going on around the world, not only in Ukraine, but also in the Gaza and Palestine. And then, you know, another thing that impacts me directly, you know, is the DACA and DREAMers Act, right? It is a program which provided protection from deportation and work authorization for undocumented individuals who were brought here as babies, right? So we're talking about young people, babies who have grown up here. You know, I know I have a family member who is in that DACA program, who, you know, doesn't know what Kenya, because they came here when they were only 3 years old, you know, and that group of population in this country, you know, is definitely in jeopardy of being basically deported back to their various countries.
Okay.
You know, so there's a lot of things that are affecting, you know, the population here in the U.S. and his presidency, and we are definitely, you know, very concerned about what the next 4 years are going to look like.
All right, so Hulda, help us understand a little bit more about what your role actually is. You are the winner of the Minnesota House of Representatives seat. Now, what is your mandate? And how does that connect to everything that you've just talked about with the issue of immigration, deportation, and all the other challenges that you think now communities might face?
Absolutely. That's a really great question, because a lot of times, the civic engagement around how American politics work is key in understanding some of these races, right? So I'm running for. I just received the win for the Minnesota House of Representatives, and so that means is just the jurisdiction of it is just the state of Minnesota. And so when we talk about going back to your question in terms of how does that relate to some of these things that I've talked about, for example, immigration, that is a federal issue and challenge that we obviously have to address at the federal level. But at the state level, obviously, we can create as a state policies that, that are friendly to immigrants. And Minnesota has been very progressive and leading in that effort, where we are a very inclusive state. So when you think about, or when you are wondering what a Minnesota House of Representatives member, does, we play a critical role in state government by creating, debating, voting on legislation that impacts the lives of, the residents here in the state of Minnesota. So that is the big key differentiator between, the state level and the national level. And so there's definitely things that we can do here on the state level to impact the day-to-day lives of Minnesotan residents. But at the same time, there's big ticket items that need to be addressed and debated and focused on at the national level, on the federal government.
All right, Hulda, you speak so passionately about this. Very briefly, because unfortunately we are out of time, but why does this matter so much to you? And I want you to touch on your personal story, because if I'm not wrong, your father was almost deported, and you came to the US when you were very young as an immigrant.
Absolutely. So everybody who've done a little bit, it looks like you guys have done extensive research on my family story here in the U.S. We were 48 hours away from being deported. I came here when I was 9 years old, and my family fought the immigration system, the very complex immigration system, for 11 years. And finally, my church petitioned then Senator Paul Wellstone, who really lobbied around our family, lobbied the courts, and our case was overturned within 48 hours. And to me, back then, I didn't realize the magnitude of that moment and the power that, a political leader had. And it changed the trajectory of my family's life. It changed the trajectory of my life, where 20 plus years later, I am here, I have a family here, I own a home here, I'm raising my family here, and I'm running for office as an immigrant. So that magnitude of what that moment meant is the epicenter and is the audacity of hope, right? That Obama talks about in his book, where in America, you can be somebody, you can be anything that you want to be. And the fact that I'm standing here as an immigrant from a small village in Nyamemiso in Kenya to hold an office is definitely a testament of this country and the democracy that I'm fighting to protect.
All right, Hulda, we are so proud of you. Congratulations once more, and we wish you all the very best on this journey.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for yours. All right, joining us there, Hulda Momanyi Hiltsley. She is the first ever Kenyan immigrant to be elected to a state legislative position. She has won the Minnesota House of Representatives seat, coming to us live from the United States. All right, at this point, we have got to take a breather on this broadcast. Do stay with us. There is more on the other side.